You ready?
Ready.
Ready? Okay.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Read This Book podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Duncan.
And I'm your other host, Matthew Meadows.
We said both our names this time
Yes, we
without
did.
so much as a hitch. And we are off to the races for another episode of the Read This Book podcast.
What's up, man?
Nothing much.
Yeah.
Just hanging out here on the couch.
Yeah. Oh, you
Ready
are?
yeah, here I am. Ready to talk about books and life.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Yep.
How are you?
I'm good, man. We did not post an episode last week.
Because we wouldn't have anyway.
Yes, we would have. We missed
you
a
sure?
week. Yep.
Are you sure?
Yep.
I'm not sure.
Oh, I might be wrong.
I'm...
Oh, yeah, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I've ruined the episode. Let's start back from
Hey, this is just more for you to edit.
yeah.
Today.
Hey, man, how's it going?
So good, dude.
Yeah.
Just hanging out here on the couch.
Yeah.
Ready to talk about books and life.
So
I'm glad I got to take two on that.
yeah. I've been busy.
Yes. you
So I have not read a whole lot
Yeah.
in the last couple of weeks. I've been busy I was teching 2 shows
have. Mhm.
or in tech for 2 shows. We wrapped that up.
For the
Um,
uninitiated, that's dress rehearsal week
Yeah,
and performance week.
It's a week of like 5-hour long rehearsals and then the performances. And I also ran a half marathon.
No big deal.
No big deal.
Which, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. It was awesome. It was honestly the coolest experience ever.
Yeah.
I will get you to run one, I think.
I honestly am like 90% there on
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Like I am much more leaning towards it than against it.
I really think that you would have a good time, even just from the like atmospheric
Yeah.
standpoint.
I'm already piecing together like a training routine
Yeah.
for it.
Because like you start the race. So this is the Kentucky Derby Marathon, mini and marathon.
He's being modest. This was the actual Kentucky.
Yeah, I
Derby.
ran in the Kentucky Derby and I won. Get your bets in. This is being recorded before it is aired. So
Yeah.
bet on me. To win the Kentucky Derby.
Because I did it.
But so it's the Kentucky Derby Festivals Marathon. And there was like 7,000 people that ran the mini marathon.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
wild.
Yes, and so you're all just there at the starting line, and so it's an insane gathering of people. But you run, and you along the way, all 13.1 miles. There's just people on the side, like
Mhm.
with cowbells, like whoa,
Go.
yeah, go you. Some people write their names on their shirts so people know what their name is. Yeah, so they can cheer them on. Which is really cool, and I think if I do it again, I will, or when I do it again, I will do that.
You'll write your name. What if you just tattooed your name on your chest?
But I wear a shirt.
Well, you would have to not.
I would probably still wear a shirt.
Okay.
I don't think that is my bag. But I
The mental picture of you
with
running.
my name tattooed on my
your
chest, I would. That's a person I don't want to speak to.
And everyone's like, "Why did you
Why
do
did
that?"
you do that? You could have just
for this marathon. That's why I did.
you could have
this.
just wrote it in Sharpie.
Like, that's a $1,200 tattoo. I know.
Yeah.
You didn't have to do cursive.
I fundraised.
know.
I fundraised for it. It's crazy. But yeah, so it was an awesome experience.
Yeah.
Although I wish that I didn't have 1,000 other things happening in the same week.
Yeah.
Because I literally I ran the half marathon and then I went to work.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
like
Which is a wild experience.
yeah. I took like a 2-hour nap. I had around like mile 7. I was like the only thought going in through my brain was Wendy's double baconator, large fry, cherry Coke. Wendy's double baconator, large fry, cherry Coke. I texted my mom like in the middle of the race.
Yeah.
Wendy's double baconator, large fry, cherry Coke, and she just laughed at the message. But I got my double baconator afterwards.
Beautiful.
But I could only eat like half of it.
Yeah.
I wasn't really that hungry, which is weird.
Wild.
Yeah, because I burn like 2,000 calories doing the race. Um, but yeah, it was awesome. We got to run through Churchill Downs,
That's cool.
which was really cool.
Well, I would assume so at the Kentucky
Derby.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of addicted to it. I think, and I like the day after, I was like, oh, I really want to go on a run.
Like, I could do this again.
I could
right now.
Honestly, I feel like I could have gone further.
The fact that you felt like you could go for a run the next day proves that you trained for it really, really well.
Yeah.
Without exhausting yourself.
Yeah. And well, that's the thing. It was like I trained only in zone 2 cardio, which for people who don't know, it's like a specific heart rate range. So I trained at a really slow pace.
Yeah.
But my endurance went up so quickly.
Right.
And I ran the full, or I ran not the full marathon. I ran the marathon 2 minutes faster pace than I had trained for.
Yeah.
But still felt good.
Yeah.
So it was which is not really a good idea. Like you probably shouldn't do that. Like you probably shouldn't run faster than you trained. But I didn't have any issues, and I ran some miles. I ran like 4 minutes faster than I trained.
Nice.
And I felt great.
Yeah.
And I sprinted across the finish line, dude. I was like running as fast as I could. I felt like kind of bad because I passed up a bunch of people when I did it. But I was like, you 5 people are my enemies right now.
Screw you in particular.
Yeah. And so I was like, I have to run. I see these people, I can beat them. And so I sprinted. I got across the finish line. There's like medical people there, and I stop. I'm like wobbling back and forth a little bit. And they're like, "You good?" I'm like, "I'm good." And then I felt like a zombie when I was trying to find my family.
Yeah.
But then it was all good. And I had to walk like a mile to the car afterwards too.
That just kind of adds insult to injury.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, man, it was awesome. It was awesome. That brings me to our topic of the discussion today is our concurrent quests.
Yes.
That we are on.
Which that is your quest, because you're going to continue to run more.
Yes.
I might buddy up on that quest.
My quest for real is to run in the New York City Marathon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh no, it's dying.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's dead.
Okay.
Sorry about that. We were trying something new, didn't work. Okay. But yeah, so really the main quest is to run the New York City Marathon or any of the world majors. So there's like 6 world majors. I'm gonna attempt, and this was a very like pipe dream kind of deal, to run the London Marathon.
That'd be cool.
Because the registration is open for like charities.
Yeah.
But you have to fundraise a lot for the international one. It's like $7,500. You have to fundraise. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I might give it a go. It would be in April 2025.
Yeah.
So plenty of time to train.
Sure.
And I'm in London all the time anyway. So would be cool.
That would be very
but yeah, so
cool.
that's my big quest is like I want to be like an actual runner.
Yeah.
Because it's cool to do it once, but I trained hard, but I didn't train enough to be like concerned about my time.
Right.
I just was like, I'll just finish the race.
Gotta finish it. Because it was your first half, right?
It was my first half that happened. Where are you going? It was my first half that was in person. I had done one virtually, so it's like you run it yourself and you submit your time.
Oh right.
In 2020. But this is the first one I had done in person. So yes.
Gotcha.
So the next one will be in October.
Yep.
And I will actually like try to have a good time and like
nice.
Finish under a certain amount of time.
Right.
Which would be really cool. So I'm gonna take this week and kind of do like I've just been doing easy runs the past couple of days.
Yeah.
I'm taking today off completely. Easy runs the next few days, and then I'll start doing like tempo work next week.
Nice.
Doing some more intensive kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's my big quest at the moment.
Very cool.
Steven, what's your big quest at the moment?
I'm continuing down the technology quest, and I am now viewing this as more of a continuation than a brand new quest.
Sure.
Because we've talked about like getting off of social media, which you've done before, for brief periods of time. Yeah. I did for about a year.
Yeah.
Off of all social media entirely. And only just recently got back on to have a Bookstagram, which is kind of its own little thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've downgraded to a flip phone.
Yes, you have.
Actually, I can show it.
It's beefy. Like
Just
it's not like
a nifty little
If you're not watching the video of the show, it's not like a flip phone as you would think of it. Maybe.
How satisfying is that? Would you like to hear the sound as it closes, everybody? Even
Yes.
the listeners.
Wow. And that's beautiful.
Classic. That takes you back.
Yeah, it does. It's not what you would think of as like a normal flip phone. It's beefy and it's on Android 11, I think, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a newer flip phone.
Yeah. And it's got a touch screen on it. It connects to the internet. Like you can do all the things on it.
Yeah.
But it is a flip phone.
And you said it was how much?
$60.
Monthly?
No.
I'm kidding.
$60.
So just one time payment.
I paid $60 and I own the phone.
Yeah, plus like the line and all that.
It's actually got upgradable storage too, so I could put in a mini SD up to a terabyte. I think.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would need that.
If you stored like music and stuff, which leads me to another part of the quest. So ideally, this is going back in the direction of single or like minimal use devices, as opposed to having the ability to do everything on one.
From one, yeah.
So I had bought an iPod Touch. It did not end up working out. I sent it back. They refunded me. It's fine. It was only a waste of 3 weeks. I'm not bitter about it.
Why did it
It's
not
okay.
work out?
So the battery dropped by roughly 1 percentage point every 15 seconds.
Oh.
Which is not good for anxiety at all.
No.
And I don't even have it.
Yeah.
But I did watching that battery go down. And then there was a weird screen flaring issue.
Cool.
And when I looked closer, the screen was actually like peeling off of the device.
Oh, good.
So I figured that wasn't right.
Yeah.
And I sent it back to them and said, hey, this isn't right.
Yeah. You bought this from a seller? Like a third-party seller?
Yeah, and it was through Back Market, the refurbishing site.
Yeah.
So they're pretty legit. And even if it doesn't work out, they're really good about refunds and stuff like that. So just finished the process of that being refunded. I'm experimenting. I'm buying a $60 MP3 player off of Amazon that also runs on Android. You can download apps and whatnot on Wi-Fi. You can download your Spotify library, expandable storage up to a terabyte, all that good stuff. And the idea will be that obviously for my phone, I will text, I will call, maps. That's about it. And authenticators for like work stuff and things like that. For the MP3 player, that'll be for listening to music, listening to audiobooks.
Yeah.
So I needed one that could connect to Wi-Fi so that I could have like Libby
and Hoopla and
all that good stuff. But then download the audiobooks, download from streaming services like Spotify, and then just go offline with it. So the idea being that 99% of the time with that device, you're just using what's on the device, which means you have to think about what's going to go on there. You have to think about all that. Because I've also noticed I lose time down a black hole if I just get on Libby or Hoopla or whatever and just start looking through all the things that are available. And then 45 minutes later, I've listened to 0 minutes of any books, but I have tagged like 60 of them to read at some point in the future, which is great. Sometimes you got to do that. But like,
I hear you.
I've done that enough in the last couple of months where I'm like, okay, I could have read a significant portion of a book in the amount of time that I've just scrolled through books. And so the idea is basically to have devices for specific purposes. So you're only going to use the device when you have the intention of fulfilling that purpose. When you have all the purposes completable in a single device, you end up doing less of what you actually want to do. It's kind of the theory. And it could be completely wrong and, whatever. I will find out. It's also a very affordable quest to go home. Because I got a $60 phone, a $60 MP3 player. We're not breaking the bank for any of this stuff. And at the end of the day, if it all fails, I will go and, spend a few $100s on a phone and we'll be fine. But yeah, so that's the quest that I'm on. We'll see how it works.
I'm intrigued. I am. You've piqued my interest on the flip phone thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I am on my phone all the time. And like with content creation, that's its own thing. But But I've even been recently been like, Ugh, I don't even know if I want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's like I enjoy it
Yeah.
in small doses.
Yeah.
But I was making TikToks like, well, now that TikTok is like I'm up in the air.
Yeah.
I was doing TikToks every day for like 3 weeks. I was like, oh my goodness, this is exhausting. And then I took the 2 weeks off to do
Yeah.
the stuff, and I'm like, I don't know if I really want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
So now I'm having an existential crisis. And you have contributed. Um,
Here's
albeit
what I found though.
positively.
Here's what I found though. Like, so let's just take Bookstagram as
Mhm.
the single example. So I thought about like, okay, should I be doing reels? Should I be doing,
Yeah.
like video content of any kind? And I haven't gone into it yet just because it feels like a lot and it feels exhausting.
Yeah.
I know once I got a groove to it, it wouldn't necessarily be, but I also just don't feel like I want to do that. But I really enjoy using my old DSLR camera, lining up some books or
Mhm.
whatever in a nice little formation down here in the basement, snapping a picture, throwing it on the iPad, doing a quick edit, uploading to Instagram, and then putting it away.
Yeah.
So it's like a 15
See,
to
now
20-minute process.
That's different. Yeah.
Yes, it's like a 15 to 20-minute process that includes using a real camera to
Yeah.
take a real picture, editing, uploading, and you're done.
Yeah.
And then I put it away. I'll check back an hour or two later to see if
Yeah.
anyone's commented, and then like the next day.
Yeah.
But it's very limited. And I find when you just do it all within the single device, you're on the device for like an hour and a half from setting up, like taking the picture
Mhm.
to posting to interacting
Yeah.
to, whatever. Whereas with this, it's just 15, 20 minutes and it's much more tactile.
Yeah.
And you feel like you've done something.
I do use a DSLR camera for my pictures, so
Mhm.
I agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
So I think it's also just kind of finding a way to make it fun to interact with.
yeah. My biggest thing with like downgrading my phone
Mhm.
is I travel so much
Yeah.
that I feel like I need it.
Yeah.
Like,
Bet you don't.
I know, I bet I don't either. But like, because I don't want to have friction between me and figuring out how to get somewhere.
Yeah.
Is my like,
Well, that's why I like that
Yeah.
this one has
yeah.
Google Maps on it.
Or just like the eSIM thing is really
Sure.
nice. And so it's like I don't know, like I've done it before with phones, like switching out
Mhm.
the SIM card when you go somewhere.
Yeah.
Which is not a huge deal. I don't know. It feels this just feels safer to me.
Oh yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is maybe not a good reason to keep doing something, but that's my biggest like hurdle with it.
It's forced me to think through a lot of
Mhm.
things, and that's
Yeah.
why I haven't like gotten rid of my old phone yet
Yeah.
either, because I wanted to use the other one for a while to make sure that I wasn't missing anything.
Yeah.
Because I have done enough things like this in the past where you're like, no, this will be fine, and you jump in head first and then crack your neck.
Yes.
But we're not there yet.
yeah.
I really haven't found much of that yet.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And I do you have intrigued me, and that is
It's a fun quest so far.
yeah.
Really fast, bro. Weekly check-in.
I have nothing to say, to be honest with you. I've been reading been reading The Way of Kings.
Yeah.
Biggest book ever. And that's pretty much all that
Yeah.
I have been reading.
I've semi-broken the slump a little bit. I picked up the pace a lot in the last couple weeks over what it had been at the beginning of April. So, just really quickly, finished the first Percy Jackson book. Good fun. Liked it a lot. Read a couple of really great nonfiction books. I almost talked about one of them today, but they are called How to Hide an Empire, which is the one I was
Mhm.
going to talk about
Yeah.
potentially, but I'm not. And then Bottoms
cool.
Up and the Devil Laughs, which is kind of about like surveillance culture and like the deep state, but the tragic flaw, and it's very well done, it's very well put together. The tragic flaw of the book is that it kind of starts its history of all that at the Patriot Act after 9/11, and it's like, okay, but there was already a whole like
Yeah.
structure in place that
Sure.
was ready to mobilize when the Patriot Act passed. And
Yeah.
sure, the size of the government like quadrupled in agencies and whatnot after that, but there was already like a lot of
Yeah.
stuff in motion.
Yeah.
So I would have preferred if they could have been a little bit more historically inclusive
Mhm.
to tell a more well-rounded story. But all in all, like the ending of it was good. That basically we live in a surveillance culture because of ourselves. Like we are the surveillance culture. Um, and yeah, very good thesis, very good book. Yeah, really loved both of those. The Mountain and the Sea, which I will be talking about today.
Yeah.
Moonraker, another Bond book. Quick little palate cleanser in there. It's a lot of fun. The Princess Bride. I read that one.
Nice.
Excellent.
Great.
Super funny. And then finished Court of Mist and Fury,
Nice.
book 2 in the Bookstagram Bible.
Yeah.
As I've taken to calling it. Yeah, so that's what I've been working on. The pace has picked it back up a little bit. I think the total for April was like 10.
Nice.
Which is solid.
I think I've read probably 4 books this month.
Yeah, which with all you've had going on is pretty great.
Yeah, and I would a little bit before we recorded. I was like, man, I feel like I haven't read a whole lot. That's not necessarily true. I have read a lot.
Yeah,
and I'm like 400 pages, 300 pages into Wave Kings.
So like 5% done.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. It's so crazy because I was like, I'm about 250, 300 pages in, the size of a normal book.
Yeah,
I would be done if this was a normal book, or it like in the final act.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't even know what's happening. We're just getting started.
Yeah. You see how much I've slowed down since I've dived into series? They slow me down so bad.
Yeah.
Because I don't like to just dive in for a few minutes here and there in a series book like I do with one that I'll be done in 2 or 3 days if I just keep plugging at it. You know.
And I hear you. Yeah. I do.
Not to say that I'm not into the series that I've been reading.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it has slowed me down.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
Before we get into the books we're going to talk about, want to take a second to talk about our sponsor, Tether. Tether is a Louisville-based software company. Our podcast has been using Tether to post all of our social media stuff, do all of our email newsletter stuff, and a bunch of other stuff. And for other businesses, they have a lot of customer relationship management stuff that we don't necessarily use, but would be super beneficial to another company. And it's a really affordable program for most businesses. And they have a awesome customer service team, and we love them very, very much. Our other sponsor is us. We have a Patreon page. If you want to donate $1 to us every month, you'll get mentioned on the show. You get our monthly newsletter. You can send us questions, send us topics to talk about on the show.
We talked about a guest topic or a Patreon topic last
episode. Yeah.
Yep.
And so right now we'll thank everybody, Freddie, Stephanie, and Jeffrey. We really appreciate your support. It means the world to us.
I think about it at least 2 to 3 times a week.
Yep, me too. Because it's kind of crazy. Yeah. And we really appreciate it. Shall we talk books?
I was going to say, too, check us out on Medium, because we both write on Medium.
Yes.
Matthew posts more like short-form reviews of books that he's read, which are just really great, quick 2-3 minute reads. I'm usually posting more like, I don't know. I don't want to say thought-provoking content, but
it's more like think piece kind of deal.
Yeah. Much more pretentious.
Yes,
yeah.
I think so.
Less accessible. You have to be kind of a douchebag.
Yeah. Which is
kidding.
Fine if you are.
That's me. That's me.
He's literally me. No, your stuff is just you go more in depth on like topics rather than like the book itself.
And I just posted an article a few days ago about the lasting relevance of the James Bond franchise.
It's good.
Thank you. I appreciate
it.
So check that out as well, because we actually both make a little bit of money off of Medium when people go read those articles.
Yes.
So that's
very
just
helpful.
kind of all the ways that you can help us out, help the show out, are to kind of contribute to, whether it's the Patreon, whether it's just listening to these and interacting with them on social media, or like using our affiliate links or Medium or whatever. All that stuff typically goes into some sort of enhancement on the show or show-related stuff.
Yeah.
Or just buying more books, which
buying more books
is important when you
when you talk
have
about
a show
books.
about books that you've read.
Yep. So before we get started, that is the one thing that people always ask me about, is when I tell them that we have a podcast about books. They're like, how do you how do you read so many books? Like,
Yeah.
how do you have books to talk about all the time? I was like, I don't know,
Gotcha.
man. You just kind of got to do it.
Yeah.
No real, you don't have an option.
Yeah.
Except for sometimes when we were just like that one when I was out of the country, we kind of just talked
Yeah.
about an
Yeah.
update, which we might need to do again, in August, because I don't think that I'm gonna be able to bring myself to read.
Yeah. You're
on
gonna
that trip.
slow down heavily.
Yeah, and I feel it currently.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the book I am gonna talk about
Please do.
is a book that I loved, and that book is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson.
Okay.
So I am on my Cosmere Brandon Sanderson journey. I am having a blast with it. Warbreaker is a standalone book,
Okay.
whereas Mistborn was a trilogy. Warbreaker is a 600 something page standalone. With the most interesting character I think that I've ever read about, and a character named Lightsong.
Okay.
So there's this kind of idea in Warbreaker, in the world that it takes place in returned gods.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, if a person dies showcasing some quality trait to a high level, they can sometimes be reincarnated as a returned god.
Mm-hmm.
And those gods are the kind of pillar of the society. They have votes in like what the country does, like if they go to war or if they like um normal government stuff.
Yeah.
Lightsong is a returned god who does not believe that he is a deity. He does not believe that he is a god. And that is the most interesting setup for a character, I think.
It's a really good setup.
An atheist god.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very interesting. And Sanderson has this really interesting way too, and you see it in Mistborn as well. And talking about religion is in a really fascinating way.
Yeah.
So anyway, he is a great character. Also just funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's a funny character. He basically actively tries to get people to stop believing in him.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting to me. And then there's a couple other characters. There's two sisters.
That sounds like what's the Monty Python movie? Life of Brian.
Yes.
Where it's the time of Jesus,
yes.
but it follows Brian. And
yes.
people start believing in Brian.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of similar.
And he's actually like actively trying to dissuade them
yes.
from believing in him.
Yes. That's honestly not a bad analogy.
Yeah.
And then you have two sisters. One of them has been sent to I forget the name of the country, Haladrin, I think, to marry the God King.
Okay.
The God King who is in charge of everything. And the other sister was supposed to be sent, but her father couldn't do it. Like couldn't bring himself to send her, so he sends another one. So basically her thing is like she wants to go there, rescue her sister, and she runs into an interesting cast of characters in doing so.
Mm-hmm.
You, I think, would like this book because there's a lot of political intrigue.
Okay.
Some people, I think, would not enjoy this book as much because the middle portion is very much people talking.
Okay.
A lot of conniving, a lot of scheming, if you will.
Can I dig into this specifically?
Yes.
Because I've actually been thinking about like politics within fantasy.
Yes.
And like how it's executed.
Yes.
And I want to see where this book and pretty much Sanderson in general kind of falls on the spectrum, right? So I'm working through the Court of Thorns and Roses series right now. I've read through half of the Game of Thrones series at this point from like a couple years ago. And obviously Game of Thrones is all political intrigue essentially in the fantasy setting. Have you read much of that?
I've not read any of it.
Okay. So each chapter, different character perspective, your jam,
Yeah.
you know. And so you're only finding out as much about the big picture as each person knows at any given time, and you're piecing it together with them. Nothing is ever just explained to anybody, right? There's no point in time where one of the characters pulls the character aside and goes, all right, here's the whole situation of the political landscape of this place. Never happens. Court of Thorns and Roses. There's very little. do not get into the political side of the world until really the book that I'm in now,
Yeah.
for the most part. And what I've noticed is it's very explainy. Like, the characters will sit around and discuss, here's the history of this thing
Mm-hmm.
or this situation, and what should we do about it?
Yeah.
And it's all like everybody's talking about it right there. Like, there's no intrigue to it aside from I wonder how this pans out.
Sure.
But as far as the actual learning about the political landscape, learning about who the major player are, learning about motivations, double crossings, all that kind of stuff, it's just all kind of right there.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens.
Sure.
There's no unraveling to it. So where does this fall on the spectrum of
That's a good question.
everything's right out in the open and explained, and everything rolls out cleverly through dialogue and perspective shift?
So most of the story, there are I think 3 points of view. Each of them have vastly different experiences, vastly different connections. Therefore, they have different perceptions of what's going on. So I would say more so on the side of nobody knows what's happening until the very end when things are explained.
Okay.
The reader also doesn't necessarily know what's happening either.
Yeah.
So although things are explained, they're explained in a way that feels very withholding of information.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really well done.
Okay.
I think that the possible snag here is that part of the time you don't really know why a character is doing something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a war that is on the horizon, and there's a character who seems to be gearing up for it in a certain way, and you're just like, that doesn't make sense why they're doing that.
Yeah.
And so it really is, a lot of it is characters either trying to incite or stop war.
Gotcha.
And so I like it. Yeah, I would definitely say that it leans more towards the side of we're finding out as we go through dialogue, through explanations, that here's what's happening.
Yeah.
And at the end, honestly, nothing that I did not expect it to be. I did not expect the ending of the book to be the ending of the book. And so you're just kind of left to piece back through information after you've finished it.
Okay. That's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like you've read it, and then now you're like, oh, I remember when this happened. That makes sense that this would be the case.
Yeah.
And so there's some plot twisty stuff. There's a couple major plot twists that I did not see coming. That I really enjoyed. A lot of subversion of expectations. But yeah, so to answer your question in a really, really long roundabout way, I would say that based on what your description of Game of Thrones, it is more along the lines of that kind of political system.
Yeah. The more I think about it, maybe I'll go back and reread a Game of Thrones and talk about it on the show, because I do feel like it's everything you love.
Yeah.
In
I will
terms
read
of
it.
the writing
I will
style.
read it at some point. Yeah. I own all of them. I own all the Game of Thrones books.
That's so ridiculous. I want to. I just never pulled the trigger.
Well, so I went to Half Price Books one day, at a whole set for $15.
Well, you gotta.
And you have to.
You gotta.
I'm not gonna not.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You
Are you
can't
insane?
not.
I would never do that.
What if you would? What if you did?
I could never. What if it was?
What if it was?
That's a.
I am.
Yeah. Who do you think you are? I am. Sorry, everybody. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think that you would like it. And I think too, it's a good maybe entry point to the Cosmere.
Okay.
I do still think that Mistborn is the way to go.
I do kind of prefer to get into Sanderson with a standalone.
And the longer that you are on Bookstagram, the more that you will want to get into Sanderson, though. So like, I think that if you picked up a copy of Warbreaker, just had it ready to go for like when you want to do it.
When I felt like it.
Yeah, well, because it's a fairly cheap find. Like I got it on Thrift Books for like $4. Yeah. And so it's like, all right, no, I got that one from Half Price Books.
Yeah.
So you can track it down really easily. And it's I don't know. It's very. I read it very quickly too. I read it
Yeah.
in like less than a week, and it's a long book too. It's like 650 pages, 660 pages. So definitely, I definitely think worth checking out, especially for you. I think if you do want to get more into it on a standalone basis,
Yeah.
I think it's really good because it has enough. I think, and I've only read 4 of his books, but it has enough of what makes Sanderson really great in it. That I think, and his prose, I feel like is often criticized, because it's not super flowery,
Yeah.
and it's not super, um, you read high fantasy and sometimes you expect a certain
Yeah.
level.
He's like the Hemingway of high fantasy.
Sure, I don't really know what that means.
Well, he had a very like direct.
Oh yeah,
writing
sure,
style.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So it's a little bit less Tolkien-esque,
Sure.
than maybe you would think it would be.
Yeah, dude, you got to read some Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway,
the
I think
more you describe things you like, I'm
Yeah.
like, this is you. This is what you need.
yeah, I think you would really enjoy it. And I hope you give it a shot.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Tell me about your book.
You want to hear about it?
I do.
Just real quick. So I actually made a Bookstagram post about this
Mhm.
yesterday, from the time of us recording, 2 days ago from the time of this airing.
Nice.
And the author saw it and liked my post talking about his book.
That's cool.
That's not happened to me yet, so
Yeah.
it was a big moment for me.
That is
I was
cool.
really excited. So thank you, Ray Naylor, for liking my post about your book, The Mountain and the Sea, and how wild would it be if he was watching this too?
That would be crazy.
That'd be insane.
That would be
like, hey, that guy
insane.
with the post that I liked made a whole podcast
Yeah.
about my book.
Yeah. I'll have
Even
to tag
though,
him when I post.
20% of this podcast will be dedicated to the book.
Yeah.
Anyhow. Okay.
Anywho.
For those of you watching, be blessed by my favorite cover of the year of anything I've read so far.
I have seen this book before.
When I posted about it, there are some folks, I will be completely honest, there are some folks that this book was not their jam and they did not like it. But everyone agrees universally on the cover.
Yeah, it's great.
Amazing.
It is great.
And I've told people, I'm like, buy the book
just to look
because
at it.
it's worth having the visual of it on your shelf.
Yeah.
Even if you never read it or you start it and don't like it, like it's worth owning. It's a beautiful cover.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And honestly, like really well put together for a paperback. Like the paper is a little heavier. It's a really well put together book. So geeking out about the paper aside,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, you can tell that we've been doing this for a minute now. When you're bringing up things like an author's prose, and I'm talking about the paper quality of a book, ridiculous.
Ugh. Make me sick.
I know. I need to say something stupid.
Yeah.
Fast. All right. So the Mountain and the Sea. The general overview of the plot is that some folks die in the ocean exploring the wreck of a boat. Right? They're trying to find something in the wreck, I think, and they die. Right? But it becomes apparent very quickly that they didn't die down there. There wasn't an accident. It very much appears that they were killed. Murdered.
Murdered, if you will.
Murdered. The problem is there was no one else around. Verified, double checked, no one else around. It's in like this protected zone, so you have to have special clearance to be able to go there, because they're protecting like certain wildlife species and stuff. So not everyone can go in. So very limited people there. And it appeared that these people were killed with like a sharp object. And then they find a like
sharp object.
A sharp object that was made sharp. Right? And so they have to go through the process of trying to figure out what the heck like destroyed these people, killed these people. So there's a scientist that they bring in who has kind of a 50-50 track record on successful exploration of deep sea creatures. She had a snafu in which she accidentally killed off a whole population of deep sea creatures because she handled the situation wrong. A lot of guilt about it.
Sure. Naturally.
Yeah, as you do. Happens to me all the
Anytime
time.
you kill an entire species of creature, yeah, I'm sure
It
you feel
just
guilty.
really weighs you down.
Yeah.
You've got the weight of so many jellyfish on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Um,
Out,
now we're
out,
back.
out of context, that is
Now-
an insane sentence.
Now we're back.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
Okay,
back.
Now I feel comfortable again.
Yeah.
And then, so what's fascinating too is they give her essentially like the super advanced android as a working companion.
Mhm.
And it's essentially just a few steps past our AI, right? So it's conscious, it's sentient by all the Turing tests and whatnot. But it's an AI, right? And so these are your two main characters, and then there's a few other people that they interface with. So it's kind of not too distant future, speculative,
Sure,
thriller type thing. The whole book is essentially a analysis of consciousness and humanity and what that means. It's talking about like, what does it mean to be human? Are you human just because you're conscious, or is consciousness something that can be achieved outside of being human?
Interesting.
What would it mean for a non-human entity to achieve consciousness? What would that mean for humanity? And so what I wasn't expecting was for it to not only take that question and apply it to an animal species, because if you couldn't tell by the cover of the book, presumably the octopus is sentient. And so that much was expected, and that's kind of the tension through a lot of this, is they're trying to work out, okay, what can this animal actually do? Can it make tools? Can it like speak? Does it have language? Can it do these things? Like basically all the things that make humans humans. Can it do all those things? How smart are they, and do they hate us? Do they want to kill us? Like that's kind of the underlying tension of the whole thing. But then you get this really interesting exploration of the whole question by also having an AI like android character as part of the team researching. So you don't just have human perspectives on it. It's like, well, am I dangerous? Am I trying to kill you? No. So maybe we don't take a human-centric approach to our science on this particular species. So just really, really fascinating conversations that occur through the book. I'll say too, like they're kind of unraveling the mystery of these octopi is super fascinating because it really unfolds like a mystery thriller. They get this little crumb of evidence, this little piece of data, and then are trying to like piece all this stuff together. They end up detecting a pattern that shows that maybe these octopi have an actual language that they're communicating with, but the language doesn't work like any human languages. So they're trying to piece together like how their communication works.
It's like Arrival.
So different. Yes, it's very much like Arrival. Yes,
I love Arrival.
Yeah. So the language stuff,
that's my favorite movie. One of my favorite movies.
The approach taken is very similar.
My second favorite movie.
What's the first?
Interstellar.
Wow, those are very similar.
I know.
Favorite movies.
Yep.
Interstellar's up there for me.
Gravity's number
top
3.
10. Are you serious?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That
I'm kidding.
would be funny.
That was a joke. Into the Spider-Verse is number 3.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the general thing. They discover these octopi. They're trying to figure out how intelligent they are. And then there's also the tension of like, well, we're in this very secluded space right now. What happens when news of this species gets out? And the main character, the protagonist, has a very vested interest in making sure that's handled correctly, since she's already mishandled it once before. Yeah. And so that's kind of there's 2 different tension points, and then a third one gets introduced part of the way through because there's a couple of twists that give a little bit more context to the characters that are there, and also a little bit more urgency. So yeah.
So can I ask, the people who didn't like the book that you've spoken to,
it just didn't grab them. And I would say if you get through the first, 100, 150 pages and it's it's not grabbing you, then okay.
Yeah.
What I've responded to some people was, so I read this book in a day.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like I blasted through
Yeah.
this thing. And I think that was to its benefit
Sure.
because getting to take it all in essentially in one sitting. I mean,
As one.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
all fresh as you're going through it
Sure.
when you do it all in one single day. That very much played to its favor. If I had read this book over the course of a week or two, maybe would have
Yeah.
lost interest a little
Yeah.
bit. Because there are kind of long sections of discussion,
Mhm.
which in context of the whole thing are fascinating
Yeah.
and actually work towards the tension. But if you were to just pick up that section and just read that conversation, you'd be like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? But as part of the whole, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I do think that this is one that you have to be in the right mood for.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the right time for.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, because it's such a short audiobook, I would recommend it as an audiobook
Sure.
for a drive, a plane ride.
Yeah.
Know,
Did you read it physically? Or
I did both.
Okay. Oh
Um,
yeah.
Yeah. And then a couple sections while I was in the car, I just listened to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't typically read physical books while I'm driving.
Probably best that you don't.
It didn't work out well last time.
Yeah.
That's a joke. But yeah, so I do think it's better to read it, get through it fairly quickly,
Yeah.
and have all of it together as one cohesive
Cool.
story. It plays like a version, like an episode of Black Mirror back when it used to be good.
Ooh, yeah.
You know?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha. That's. I mean that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm definitely interested. You're not the first person who I've heard talk about this book.
Yeah.
And I think that the concept of like sentient octopi.
Yeah.
Octopeople.
That's the octopeople.
Yeah. Is really interesting to me. Especially from now that you've said it's like a rival.
Yeah.
I'm definitely more interested now.
Well, and it reminds me of your descriptions of like this is how we lose the time.
Yeah.
And a couple of the books that you read earlier this year. It's in line with some of
Like
those
the speculative,
philosophies.
like
yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, I also I'm looking at it now and I do love the cover.
It's gorgeous.
Like that's really nice. Also, can I tell you what I don't like about it though? The short cover. Hate that. Yes. Actually. Hate that a lot. But I do, and also
this thing on the side of the pages is actually like a plot point in the book.
Really?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will definitely give this one a go.
Yeah, it's a really great all-around work.
Yeah.
For sure.
Cool. Well, Steven?
That does it for me.
That does it for me too.
That's excellent. So, I think it's worth saying that the most valuable thing our listeners have is their time.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly the most valuable thing we have.
Yep.
And the fact that you would spend time listening to what we have spent time talking about is incredible to us. And we thank you very much for spending your time in that way and hanging out with us this whole time. Please check out our Patreon, our Medium articles, our respective bookstagrams, and our Bro Read This Book podcast Instagram page. Interact with us there if you want to maybe tag the show in something or like repost when we post episodes, all that kind of stuff. That's super fun. Reviews, if you've not done it before, reviews on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, are huge.
Yep.
So star ratings, reviews, all that kind of stuff helps us out massively.
Yeah.
The last time we pushed for that, 4 or 5 people gave us reviews, and now when you type bro into Apple Podcasts, we pop up.
Yep.
So
it also just makes us feel good.
It does make us feel excellent. So thank you for the dopamine. Please give us more.
Yes.
Please give us more serotonin crumbs.
Please.
We like them.
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Anything else to plug?
Nope.
So I think at this point, all we have yet to say is that
now this is podcasting. Nice.